In 71 BC, the Roman Empire did something it had never done before in its entire history. They crucified 6,000 people along the longest road in Italy, from Capua to Rome. 6,000 crosses, evenly spaced for 200 kilometers. Not to punish foreign enemies, not to deal with traitors, but to send a message to their own slaves. Don't ever try this again. Because 2 years earlier, one man led 70 slaves out of a gladiator school using kitchen knives, and almost brought down the entire empire. His name was Spartacus. Before he was a slave, Spartacus was a soldier. He was born in Thrace, what is now Bulgaria, and served in the Roman army as an auxiliary soldier. Not a Roman citizen, but skilled enough for them to hire. Essentially a contractor, doing Rome's work without the full benefits package. At some point, he deserted, got caught, and was sold into slavery. Here's where it gets ironic. The Romans took their own former soldier, put him in the gladiator school at Capua, and trained him into an even more lethal fighter than he already was. Good food, daily training, taught to fight with every weapon imaginable. Also, he could kill other slaves in front of a crowd on the weekends. A smart man, a former soldier, sitting inside a facility full of weapons and professionally trained fighters. Spoiler, this was the biggest mistake they ever made. In 73 BC, Spartacus and 70 other slaves decided to leave. Not with a complex plan, not with secret weapons. They grabbed kitchen knives from the school's kitchen and walked out the front door. 70 people. Kitchen knives against the largest empire in the world. Does that sound insane? It was insane. Rome sent a small force to bring them back. Spartacus destroyed it. Rome sent a larger force. Spartacus destroyed that one too. This is the moment Rome should have stopped and thought carefully about what was happening. They didn't stop. Word spread. Slaves from across the region started abandoning their owners and joining. 70 became thousands. Thousands became tens of thousands. Tens of thousands became 120,000. 120,000 people. Rome sent both consuls, the equivalent of sending 2 presidents, with full professional armies. Spartacus defeated both of them. This is when Rome stopped calling it a problem and started genuinely panicking. Not, "we need to handle this" panic. "We have lost control of the situation" panic. An empire that controlled the known world and couldn't control its own slaves. Spartacus had no budget, no supply chain, no strategic map. He had kitchen knives and 70 escaped gladiators, and within 2 years built a force that repeatedly defeated the Roman military. How? He trained them. The slaves who joined, farmers, craftsmen, ordinary people who had never held a weapon, were taught to fight by Spartacus and the other gladiators. They took weapons from every Roman force they defeated, organized into units, learned tactics. Spartacus was essentially running a military boot camp in the Italian countryside, with students who had absolutely nothing to lose. Roman soldiers fought for pay. Spartacus's people fought for freedom, the one thing they wanted and never had. When you fight for pay, you can run when things go wrong. When you fight for freedom, there's no other option. Over 2 years, his forces defeated at least 9 separate Roman armies, captured weapons, horses, supplies, spread across southern Italy. Rome stopped calling it the slave problem. They gave it an official name, the Third Servile War, also known as the War of Spartacus, a slave's name, on an official war against the Roman Republic. But here's the twist that most people don't know. Spartacus didn't want to take Rome. He wanted to leave. His original plan was to lead all 120,000 people across the Alps, north out of Roman territory to freedom. No conquering, no revenge, just escape. His army refused. They had beaten Rome's best soldiers repeatedly. They felt unstoppable. They wanted to keep fighting, raiding, liberating more slaves, maybe even marching on Rome itself. An army that had just done the impossible refused their general's order to retreat. That's when everything started to fall apart. Rome handed the assignment to Marcus Licinius Crassus, the wealthiest man in Rome at the time. He took the job not out of patriotism, but because it was an opportunity to build a military reputation. Crassus wasn't a battlefield genius, but he had money, soldiers, and one very Roman idea. If you can't beat them, build a wall and trap them. He constructed a wall 37 miles long across the southern tip of Italy, coast to coast, to pen Spartacus's entire force into the region of Bruttium. 37 miles of wall, built in weeks, to contain 120,000 people. Spartacus tried Plan B, hire Cilician pirates to ship his army to Sicily by sea and escape. Crassus bribed the pirates. The pirates took money from both sides and didn't show up. This is the earliest recorded instance in history of pirates successfully double-crossing both sides of a conflict. Not a proud achievement, but at least they were consistent. Spartacus broke through the wall, led his forces straight through Crassus's barrier in a single night. But his army had already started fracturing. A large faction split off and went their own way. They were destroyed separately. Spartacus was forced into one final battle in 71 BC. His forces fought until they couldn't anymore. Spartacus died in the battle. Nobody ever found his body. Rome never officially confirmed where or how he died, perhaps because they weren't entirely sure themselves. 6,000 survivors were captured. Crassus ordered every one of them crucified along the Appian Way, Rome's most traveled road from Capua all the way back to the capital. 6,000 crosses, 200 kilometers. Rome wanted to make sure nobody forgot. Rome crucified 6,000 people to make sure no one would ever try again. It worked. No major slave revolt happened in Rome after that. But here's what Rome didn't account for. The name Spartacus? Nobody found his body. No grave, no monument. Rome deliberately avoided recording the details of his death, probably because admitting that a slave had kept the empire struggling for 2 years was too embarrassing to put in writing. But when you try to erase someone from history, and sometimes that just makes them immortal. 2,000 years after his death, Karl Marx called Spartacus the most splendid fellow in the whole of ancient history. Voltaire called his war the only just war in history. A revolutionary movement in Germany in 1919 named itself the Spartacists. Dozens of films, novels, and television series have used his name as their title. Rome lasted a few more centuries and then collapsed. Nobody remembers the name of the general who ordered 6,000 people crucified along the Appian Way. But Spartacus, the man who lost, is still here. Rome crucified 6,000 people along the longest road in Italy so the whole world would see. 2,000 years later, nobody remembers the name of the man who gave that order. But the name of the man who lost, the whole world still knows it. Spartacus.